you have to leverage the fact that, hey, you're an NFL player. You've done something really cool in your past. The natural response from somebody that has done something cool in their past is that they're going to do something cool in their future.
Why small business acquisition for you instead of wanting to become a realtor, an accountant, a venture capitalist?
You don't have to do deals all the time like you do in real estate to really move the needle. Just need a handful of really good ones that you continue to, slowly grow over time, and eventually put yourself in a position to exit. That's life-changing for a lot of people. Everything's for sale out there,
Even if it's not for sale.
It's always for sale at a certain price.
Your pitch to Central Florida business owners of why they should consider working with 4 Pillars versus anyone else. All right, Jeff. So in 2018, you threw your first touchdown pass against the Browns while you're on the Bengals, and Tyler Boyd takes the ball and just kind of chucks the ball towards the stands.
Yeah.
Did you ever get that ball back?
Yeah, it was funny. Like, he caught the ball and, ran into the end zone or whatever, and he was excited, and he went to throw it at there's like a wall behind there that separates the field and the stands, and he tried to throw it at the wall, and it sailed on him a little bit, and it went into the stands, and, I was kind of running around back. I didn't see it go in the stands. So I ran down there. I asked the ref, like, hey, where's the ball? And he's like, I don't know, like, that's not my job, and I'm all freaking out. Where's the ball? Where's the ball? And come to find out, it went in the stands. And I told the equipment managers, hey, like, I would love to get that ball back. That was my first touchdown pass. And they ended up tracking it down, or at least they told me they did, and gave me a ball. And, they said they found it. So it's in the office somewhere here,
So it wasn't a random ball that they pumped up out of the locker room.
As far as I know,
God knows.
Yeah, as far as I know, it was the real one. They might have just said, hey, just give him a ball and he'll never know. But, in my mind, that's the ball that I threw to Tyler that day.
Yes, that is, I had to do the reference check there. I was seeing that and I was like, did he ever get the ball back?
Yeah, I think I did.
Okay, good. Well, welcome to Athletes and Assets, man. We, for those who don't know, we take your favorite athletes and have them chat about a business topic. I'm your host, Noah Lack. I'm here with Jeff Driskel, eight-year NFL QB, SMB, ETA, Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition expert here as the NFL representative of the SMB group with 4 Pillars, former Florida Gator alum, Louisiana Tech, and is in sunny Orlando, about to play 18 after this this podcast.
Yeah, if you're gonna live here, might as well take advantage of it.
Are you by a golf course?
Yeah, I am. I'm right down the road from a golf course. Don't get out as much as I would like, but right down the way. I'm more of a tennis guy these days.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Get out and a little bit. You can get it done in an hour and a half rather than 5. So easier sell to the family.
That's so true. I love playing golf, but I'm a big 9-hole guy.
Yeah.
I can't, the 18's a lot.
In and out. That's a whole day.
It is a whole day. It takes up your entire time.
Yeah. So, not the season of life with, 3 kids, 5 and under, and, only in town half the year. So, in my next life, I'll be a golfer.
Have you ever thought about acquiring a cash flowing golf course? Is that a thing?
It's definitely a thing. I've seen public listings for golf courses, but I have not pursued them.
Okay.
That's more of a, it seems like more of a passion project than anything else. So, but I'm sure there's people out there making money on golf courses, right? People make money on literally everything.
I feel like the maintenance it takes to manicure a great golf course, I feel like that costs more unless you are Augusta or somewhere where there is a tee time every hour. If you're not fully booked, I feel like it's hard to be super profitable. I could be wrong. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I have no idea how much it costs. And I know when members are paying a bunch of money to play, the last thing they want is a bunch of, tee times all the time, and the course gets worn out. But then you ask, the members for more money and they don't want to pay it. So it's, there's always always give and take there. But yeah, I'm sure there's a bunch of people out there making a bunch of money on golf courses. Maybe me one day. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Why small business acquisition for you instead of wanting to become a realtor, an accountant, a venture capitalist? Why was this the route that you decided to choose?
Yeah, well, early on, I thought like I'm going to be this real estate mogul, right? Like a couple years into the league, a lot of people are real estate investors. You talk about it in the locker room. Guys are investing money. They're doing rental properties, investing with bigger operations. And so I dabbled in real estate for, probably 3 years. I probably did around 15 deals, whether
Nice.
if it was by myself or with a bigger group, thinking all the while that when I'm done, I'm going to be a real estate professional. And over those 3 or 4 years, I just realized like operationally, I don't enjoy it, right? Like you buy a building, you paint it, you put some light fixtures in there, you raise the rents, and then you go do it again. It's very transactional. So still like the asset class as far as like passive investment, but with my professional time, like I realized that I didn't want to do that. It didn't bring the professional purpose that I was, hoping to set myself up for. And then I came across the idea of buying an established business and, working with a team to create a product or provide a service, with a bunch of great people, and really service the community. And, that along with the return profile that comes with buying an established small business, makes a lot of sense to me. And, I've really loved getting to know the players in the space that are, doing it at a high level, whether it's at the owner operator model or, all the way up into private equity in the lower middle market. There's a bunch of really good folks that are doing it a bunch of different ways. So yeah, it's been a blast to learn and get to know people, that are doing similar things.
I mean, how many years ago, like when did you get first introduced to this term SMB?
Yeah, it was about 1.5 years ago now.
Oh, so recently. Okay.
Yeah, relatively recent. I probably spent 6 months reading the books. There's a handful of books that are kind of like the core introduction to, buying a small business.
If you were like, Noah, read this book and then come talk to me about SMB, what would like the book be? What is this? What is the curriculum here?
It would be Buy Then Build by Walker Deibel. It's it's the classic book, right? Like it outlines, if you're stuck in your career and you want to be entrepreneurial, but you don't want to go 0 to 1, you want to buy something established at a relatively affordable price. Like it's realistic for just a normal person to go buy, a $3 to $6 million company and run it, and it talks through like, how do I build a pipeline? What people do I have to call and when? What to expect upon close? What should I do early on in the transition process? So it's a very tactical book, but it also explains, it sells the asset class as well.
Sure. And it made you start 4 Pillars Group in part.
Yeah, it was a start. That was one of the resources that I used, and then from there I really just like got on the Twitter machine, right? Like I got on Twitter, made a couple posts, kind of figured out, who are the people that I need to connect with, what's my in with these people, and yeah, like, and the people in this space are kind of like, oh, you're doing this, you need to talk to that person, or you need to talk to these few people, and then they do the same thing, and then the network rapidly builds. And next thing you know, you have a really good community that you can lean on.
Yeah, Twitter is very powerful. Like Twitter it's a great networking tool, probably as good or better than LinkedIn. But I've had this burning question because I can't find it online. Jeff, what are the 4 pillars? What are the 4 pillars?
Yeah,
here?
So that's our holding company. So we have a holding company with one operating company, and it always takes longer than it should to create an entity name, right? Like, and we wanted something, that was really going to remind us why did we start, this holding company that in 20 years hopefully has, a bunch of companies underneath it. And we always wanted to do things with integrity. We want to, first display integrity. We want to work with people who possess integrity. We want to be strategic in our decision making. We don't want to just, how did you make that decision? Well, it felt good at the time, or, my gut told me to do it. We want to be strategic.
He beat you in a game of golf. You lost the bet. Or 10.
Yeah. So we want to be strategic. We want to be people oriented. We understand that, any good organization, it's only as good as its people. And then we want to be operationally focused, right? It's easy to, look at a potential investment and say, hey, it looks really good on paper. Let's pull the trigger. We want to make sure that we can execute on, what's going into the pro forma. So those are kind of the 4 pillars in, how we make decisions and how we want to build out the team and build out the companies that we work with and the people that we want to surround ourselves with.
So I got integrity, strategy. What was the third one?
People oriented.
People. Okay.
And operationally focused. So
operationally focused. My fingers are weird. I can't do the 4, but okay. Boom.
There you go.
Right there.
Yeah.
4 pillars.
So that's how we came up with it. We wanted to create something that was, question provoking. How can we sell ourselves without selling ourselves? Oh, if you ask us what it is, we can kind of get into, some of the things that make us tick.
Okay, absolutely. So I guess the next logical thing is like, what are you looking at, man? What is, talk about this Florida small business landscape and where have you been scouting, what looks good to you and what are you guys pursuing?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, like before I really dove into this world, I don't know. It's weird. I didn't realize that like driving down the street or in any random business park in the country, there's a bunch of really, really good businesses where people are making a really good living and, producing a widget, that helps somebody. And the people that are working in said building are providing for their family, but you just drive by it and you don't think about it. So there's so many opportunities out there, whether they're like publicly posted or, you reach out to them and say, hey, if you ever think about selling, we would love to have a conversation. But naturally being in Central Florida, we wanted to kind of build relationships here in town. So we've seen a lot more opportunities here locally, than elsewhere. But yeah, we want to focus on Florida. But I mean, other opportunities present themselves as well. You tell somebody, hey, we're looking for, business in Central Florida. They say, well, I got one that you might like, but it's in Georgia. Right. So you naturally look at some of those as well. But yeah, really what we're looking at is cash flowing businesses, that have been around a while. Something that's not going anywhere with AI. Maybe you can implement some technology that's going to make the company better, but we don't want to, buy something that is solely reliant on one specific technology.
Yeah. Why would someone sell you a profitable business if it's profitable? Because they're retiring?
Yeah, that's typically the case. There's so many things that come up, right? Like people get tired, whether it's, hey, I'm 65 and I want to retire, or, hey, I started this business when I was 25. Now I'm 45 and I've kind of been on cruise control, and it's going to take somebody else to get this business to the next level. So there's a lot of cases, but, more often than not, it's, hey, I want to retire in the next handful of years. I want to see my business go to somebody who's going to run it well, take care of my clients, take care of my employees, and, essentially preserve the legacy that I poured my heart and soul in, for the past however many years.
How do you know that they're profitable? Do they allow you access to their balance sheet to see if like they're making the dough? Or do you, how does that vetting process work?
So there's a little bit of a dance, right? Like, the process typically goes like, you sign an NDA, they give you a marketing pro forma. In that pro forma, there's some high level kind of financial stats, right? And then you say, hey, can I see the balance sheet, the P&L, and the tax returns? And then a lot of times you'll get the balance sheet and the P&L, and you have to have another conversation to get the tax returns. So if a business is going to close, you really have to see all of the financials. But, this game is more about building relationships and building trust than it is simply looking at numbers. And yeah, so when they are more vulnerable, you also have to be more vulnerable, and there needs to be a level of honesty. Because if you're going to get to the closing table, it's all going to come out eventually. But it takes time.
Can we walk through an example? It doesn't have to be a real one, but let's say, I own like a hardware shop in Central Florida. I'm selling like hammers and nails and like appliances, and it's cash flowing, and I want to like sell it. Basically, if this is a store with one owner and 4 employees, and I want to sell it, essentially you're taking over this store, and then are you supplying your own? You guys are finding the employees to continuously run it. You're the owner now.
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, there's different like models of like this ETA space. In the buy and build book that I referenced, a lot of times it is an owner operator. That person is getting personal debt. That person is either has a big cash equity injection or finds investors, and then they fill the CEO role, right? That the former owner is leaving. So when I'm looking at a business, my first question is always, why are you selling it? Right? Like, I want to make sure that you're not just like
you're running from the law, like,
Yeah.
You guys in debt.
Yeah, like why are you selling it? And most of the time there's a very reasonable explanation, right? Like, hey, I just had 2 grandkids and I want to spend more time with them, and I can't do it if I'm running this business by myself, essentially. So it's most of the time it's time for me to move on in my life. So then when I get a good answer for why are you selling it, I talk about the organization chart, right? What do you do on a day to day? What can I expect? Whether it's not going to be myself, but what can you expect? My operating partner to be doing, when you're gone, because there's a transition period as well, and it can be as short as like 30 days up to 5 years. So there's always a transition period involved. But I want to understand, what does this person do on a day to day, and then I want to understand who's second in command. What does this person do on a day to day? Why aren't you selling it to this person? Most of the time they don't have enough cash, which is very reasonable explanation. And then I kind of say like, all right, well, how long do I think that it'll take, the new operating partner to learn as much as he needs to know from the seller in order for that seller to walk away and hang out with his grandkids every day? So that's the first 2 things: is why are you selling it? What do you do on a day to day? What's the organizational chart look like?
Interesting. Okay. I'm learning, man. This is great. What is the specific, like, what has been exciting for you? I mean, so let's talk about what you don't like, actually, because you mentioned that earlier. All right. Let's talk about that for a second. You're not a fan of the e-commerce stuff, the restaurants, correct? And then there was one more that you weren't a fan of.
E-commerce, restaurants. And I mentioned earlier, something that's totally reliant on technology.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's like, that gets rid of a lot in the pile.
Right.
What's something so what are you actively scouting, in Central Florida? Like, what kind of businesses have you been chatting with that you could share? Like, what's in the pipeline with?
Yeah. So the way that I see it is, the number one factor in the success of a business is who's the leader, who's the person in the chair that's running the day to day. And, so once you have, kind of found that person, I kind of tailor what we're looking for based off of that person. What have they done before? What are their preferences? Where do I think this person will succeed? What type of business environment? So from there, we basically just look for something that matches up well. So right now we're looking for something more of, in the blue collar type of space, whether it's some type of construction, HVAC, pest control, plumbing, kind of things of that nature. And there's a lot of other things that fall into more of a blue collar type of business. But just the people that we've identified,
So do you compete with do you compete with other SMB guys to schmooze with like the top plumber in like Central Florida, because that guy is getting a lot of business? He has a good name and reputation. It's almost like recruiting a guy out of the portal or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you're competing against owner operators. You're competing against private equity. You're competing against strategic buying groups. So most of the deals that you're going to look at, it's just not going to be a fit, right? Like, there was one that I was looking at the other day, built I guess it was more than the other day, but built really good rapport with the seller. I think he wanted to sell it to us, but whether it was private equity or strategic group, came in and paid over asking price cash, closing 30 days. Like, I can't compete with that. Congratulations to that seller. Like, obviously I'm excited for you and like fruit of your labor over the last however many years. But in that situation, we weren't the right fit. So yeah, there's a lot of people that, that are competing for the really good businesses.
That's tough. I mean, it's hard for you to compete. Like, you're schmoozing that plumber, and all of a sudden, like, KKR or Blackstone or BlackRock comes in. That's tough.
Yeah,
but it's also
it's a long game. In our first acquisition, we looked at over 100 businesses relatively closely until we found one that fit for us and for the seller. But I mean, 1 or 2 or 3 business acquisitions is life changing, right? You don't have to do deals all the time like you do in real estate to really move the needle. You just need a handful of really good ones that you continue to, slowly grow over time, and eventually put yourself in a position to exit. And like I mentioned, that's life changing for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And let me not forget, your advantage, being an athlete, playing at Florida. I'm sure some of these small businesses in Gainesville who rely on fraternity row to come through their businesses or the student body, and the people that live around Gainesville. I mean, you have a name around there. So has that been a competitive advantage for you as you network and make your way through the cash flowing businesses over there?
Yeah. I mean, it's a foot in the door, right? Like I mentioned earlier that, I was able to meet a bunch of people through Twitter, kind of the movers and groovers, of the SMB world. And, you have to leverage the fact that, hey, you're an NFL player, you've done something really cool in your past. People are interested by that, the natural response, from somebody that has done something cool in their past is that they're going to do something cool in their future. So it's a really good foot in the door, but it doesn't mean that that person's just going to sell you their business at some crazy discount, because you played at Florida or you played X amount of years in the NFL. But it's a good way to build early trust and rapport, which goes a long way. That's something that I don't think is, gets enough attention here, is that, most of the time this is the only transaction that these sellers will ever make. It's more than just their job. It's what they've poured everything into, over the course of their professional career. And, it's an emotional transaction, and they want to see their business go to somebody that they like, frankly.
Yeah, going into this, I didn't realize how much of it is like an emotional thing versus just looking at the numbers and making the transaction. Do you raise money before you acquire a business, or is this all coming out of the Driskel Foundation, the Driskel Incorporated?
Yeah, no, like I said, we've done one deal. We did it in Q4 of 23, and it was personal money. Like taking other people's money is, and not taking it, it's investing it and being a steward of their money. But I didn't really want to do that at all until I had a little bit of a track record. I took some bumps and bruises. It's naive to think that the first transaction that we ever do is going to go seamless, right? There's going to be some learning experiences. And I didn't want to do that with somebody else's money to, jeopardize relationships.
A lot of athletes do raise money for certain things and just kind of off their success of their career. And, myself, I've raised money for what we're doing, and it's a responsibility. Mm-hmm. It's not easy, and it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And so would you say that for folks that are in this space, though, if I could be wrong, but it feels like there's a lot of people who start off in the SMB space are well off from something else. Is that how most guys get started with ETA? I mean, do you have to have this sort of not a lot of, I don't want to say obnoxiously, but you have to have some money to do this instead of just, one day out of college, I'm going to be an ETA, stud. You kind of have to have money before this, right?
Yeah. So I think there's two things, right? You have to be in in a position financially if you want to take on SBA debt. That's the kind of financing that a bunch of people, use in buying small businesses. So whatever bank you use, they're going to look at your position. Have you been, financially responsible in your past? But more importantly than like your balance sheet or, how liquid are you? They're going to look at your experience. Why do I think that you're going to be able to run this business? Running a small business is hard. So as much as like the available cash and being well off, most of the time people have that cash or they're in a position in life where they're doing well. It's because they're smart. It's because they've done the right things. It's because they are successful in what they're doing, and the cash is just a fruit of that. So the banks are looking at the person and not just the cash behind the person.
For sure. What is like the most unassuming business you've ever seen that's just raking in dough?
Oh man. There's a lot, right? Like in any industry, you can have some rinky-dink company and you can have some massive player, right? Like that's every business. I remember, one of the most interesting ones I saw, it was super niche in, the old riches and niches. They built bridges for golf courses.
Oh, like if there was a little pond that you have to golf cart over, those are the guys you call to build a bridge.
Yep. They were the guy. I have a golf court bridge guy. That's cool. This was doing really well. So you can make a lot of money with any widget.
But how busy are those guys? Like, are there golf courses that need bridges on a daily basis? Can't be, right?
A lot of golf courses out there, man.
That is true. And it's funny. Now it doesn't seem like a good idea to acquire a cash flowing golf course. Just acquire the bridge guy.
Yeah.
Probably a better business.
Riches and niches, right? Like it's crazy. And I can't even like begin to rattle off all of the stuff that I'm seeing because everything's for sale out there,
Even if it's not for sale.
Even if it's not for sale, it's always for sale at a certain price most of the time.
Is that sort of the sentiment in this space?
Yeah. A lot of these businesses that are of a certain size, private equity, they want bigger deals. So companies that are doing, we'll call it, 8 to 12 million in revenue, those guys get hit up by private equity left and right. So they get pretty numb to people reaching out, and they basically say, hey, I'm not willing to sell this for less than an X multiple, and it's not realistic. So they don't sell it at that time. But when you have a motivated seller, they have a legitimate reason for selling, then they'll get back down to reality and move it at a price point that makes sense for most parties.
I love that golf bridge example. Do you have another one like that? That was a good one.
There's like golf cart manufacturing companies that I've seen that were doing really well. Christmas, like a Christmas light installation company. They come in, they put up your Christmas lights, they take them down, and then they warehouse them for you.
And do it again next year.
Yeah, and then do it again next year. And so they have some type of recurring revenue. It's very cyclical, but it's recurring in nature.
Yeah, 11 months out of the year, like 1 month out of the year is cyclical.
Yeah.
But like very lucrative that month for sure.
They do well. I'm seeing fireworks businesses that have done really, really well. Again, like pretty cyclical, like sprinkler repair companies that are doing really well.
So if I were to buy a very profitable firework company, is the strategy to like do this around wintertime when they have no business or they're sort of like, fiddling their thumbs, or is it actually to do it around the 4th?
No, it definitely like when they're not very busy, right? Like in a small business, the owner is typically like wearing a ton of hats. Like they're putting out fires left and right. They're not very responsive. So if you try to court, an owner of a fireworks stand on July 3rd, they're not going to talk to you. They just don't have the bandwidth. They have other, bigger fish to fry. But in the off season, they can take a breath. They can have the bandwidth that it takes. to create a relationship, to go back and forth, to go through due diligence, because there's a lot of back and forth, right? There's a lot that you have to uncover to fully understand what a business does on the day to day, and then more to uncover like the financials that allow that to happen.
The audacity to come up to a firework business owner on July 3rd asking to buy his business.
Yeah, that wouldn't go over so well.
Have you made a mistake like that? This process where like you're courting the owner at like maybe the absolute wrong time?
I mean, probably, not that they are telling me like, hey, tomorrow's July 4th. What are you thinking?
Yeah, they're not going to be mean about it, but you look back and you're like, maybe I shouldn't have like tried to buy the golf bridge guy before like the Masters.
Right. I don't know. And like, I live in a world right now in the NFL where like our mistakes are very obvious. Like I know what my mistake is right when I throw it, and then I know I'm going to go watch it on film, and then somebody else is going to tell me how stupid it was that I made that pass. So like feedback is very obvious and it's instantaneous. Feedback in this world it's just sometimes non-existent. Why didn't I get this deal? There's a ton of reasons why, but it's hard to pinpoint. So it's a numbers game, and the more reps that you get, the more comfortable you'll be in your discussions with owners, because a lot of times the first impressions go a long way. Can we
as much insight as you can provide, let's talk about that, your Q4 2023 debut acquisition, 4 Pillars Group on the map now.
Right.
Can you talk about a little bit about why that process was a success? I think we could learn something here.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like the business was a good business. It was a 30-year-old business, with an organizational chart that made sense, with an ownership group that wanted to slowly transition. They wanted to sell, but they wanted to do it slowly. They weren't, sell it and then move into, Mexico or Canada or, somewhere else. They were going to be around for a while. And they wanted to do that to make sure that the transition with clients went very smooth. The transition with their staff went smooth. They wanted to make sure that they could transfer the knowledge to the new owner. So their availability and their willingness and commitment to making sure that the future of the company goes as well as the past was huge in building the relationship. Second, it made sense on paper, right? Like the asking price for the business, it simply made sense for both parties. They were realistic. They didn't, come to the table with some price point that was never going to get done. And then the people in the business, not the owners, but the people that made up the business. They loved working there. They'd been there for a long time. The morale was high. And it was the leader in the region for what they do.
Yeah.
So it was just a solid business with solid people that made sense on paper, and we had the right person to come in and run the show. So it was a fit, and even something that seems to fit like a glove. It still took, from the first time we spoke till close, it still took probably 6 months.
That's an intense process. Were you talking to them? How would you balance the season? Because it's during NFL season, with making sure this thing closes. I mean, was it mostly your team handling this, your partners?
It was. So yeah, like I mentioned earlier, like you can't do anything significant by yourself without having a really good people. So yeah, I mean, from the initial like reach out, you talk to the broker. That person is typically the gatekeeper. Sell yourself, sell your group. How are you going to finance it? What's your plan? Who's coming to be here on day one? Things like that. And then you kind of sell the vision. You kind of sell yourself a little bit. And they say, okay, well, I'll pass you on to the next round. And then you speak with the ownership group, and you essentially do the same thing, right? You feel each other out. Why would we be a good fit? All the while, you're kind of going back and forth on email. Filling in your internal team with what's going on. So I mean, a handful of phone conversations, handful of emails, and then that process kind of got passed to the operating partner.
Yeah.
So it was somebody else leading the charge, I was the relationship builder early on, being fully transparent that I'm not going to be the one that you're going to be working with, whenever this thing closes. But I will be involved at a high level, more of a board member, strategic advisor type of role, but definitely not there physically.
So you won't be there putting the gunpowder and the fireworks and stocking the
no, more of like quarterly visits. When I can get there, weekly meetings with the leadership team, just to stay plugged in and figure out how can I help from afar. What can I do to support this organization and make sure that it not only continues like it was before, but grows at a pace that makes sense.
Yeah. Jeff, what's next for you? Football and sort of the timeline. If you could set your own timeline, which never happens, but you might as well hear it.
Yeah. No, I keep looking down at my phone hoping it's my agent calling me. So if I could set my own timeline, I sign with somebody, as soon as possible, get out to OTAs, have a great, off-season program and take some time with the family, before training camp and go into year 9 and have a successful season. So I'm hoping to play as long as possible. Love playing the game of football. It's the greatest job and career in the world. And, my body says it makes sense to play. It makes sense for my family. I'm still loving it. And, it's something that not many people get to do. And, I cherish every day that I'm in the league, and, hopefully I get to play for years to come.
That's amazing, man. And, anything you could share with the future 4 pillars? Like, let me ask this a different way.
Yep.
I need you to give your pitch to Central Florida business owners of why they should consider working with 4 pillars versus anyone else.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of competition out there, right? We're not going to be the group that's going to give you the most money. We want to pay a price that is going to make sense for both parties. But we're committed to the future of the firm. We understand that, these business owners, they've poured their heart and soul into their business. They want to see it go to somebody who's going to steward their company and treat it like they have for the past X amount of years. So we want to build relationships in the community. We want to build relationships with the people that are already on board. And we also want to grow the staffs of each individual company, to kind of propel it to the next level. So, we're committed to the past, we're committed to the future. And, hopefully we have the opportunity to get to know a lot of these really great people that are the backbone of our community. And we want to, see small business continue to thrive, especially here in Central Florida.
Jeff still got the arm and 4 pillars on the rise at the same time. Thank you so much for joining the pod, man. It's been another great episode of Athletes and Assets with my guy, Jeff Driskel, NFL QB, man. Someone give him the call, man. Give him the call.
Right.
Jeff, thanks so much, brother. Really appreciate it.
All right, Noah. Thanks, man.